bringing their children for treatment, and that's what we want for all of the kids in our community, to be able to take advantage of what we have for them and let them know that, you know, it's going to be a kind, a caring, and a family-centered environment for them.
Well, Cindy, thank you so much. Dr. Delahunt, thank you. We appreciate you joining me. If you're interested in the Florida Forum series, please contact the Women's Board at 904-202-2886. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for keeping our country free. I'm happy you looked out for our country.
It seems we are all more aware of what service to our country really means.
Does anyone know what a veteran is?
You must be brave to go in the Army.
Now it is possible to say thank you directly to America's veterans. Just log on to thankyouveterans.org, select an e-card, and send a personal message of thanks.
Please know that you will be in my prayers always. I wanted to do something to let them know how I feel.
I'm glad to say I'm an American because of you.
There are 26 million veterans living in America, from World War II to Afghanistan and Iraq. Let a veteran or someone in the military know you appreciate their service. Visit thankyouveterans.org, a public service of Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Hi, and welcome to Civil Discourse. My name is Ken Hurley, and this program is brought to you by Civication Incorporated. Civication is an organization. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization designed to promote civic engagement, civil responsibility. You can check us out on the web, the World Wide Web, the internet, at www.civication.org. And we've been doing this program, Civil Discourse, now entering our 7th year here in Jacksonville. We upload this to our website every month. You can see a new set of programs, new guests, and Civil Discourse is in the news all over the place now. We even have an organization now beginning in Arizona. The Washington Post reports the National Institute for Civil Discourse is going to open at Arizona, at the University of Arizona. Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush are honorary members. Sandra Day O'Connor will be part of it. Lots of high-profile individuals. And this is brought about by the aftermath of the shootings of January 8th in Arizona, where Representative Gabrielle Giffords and others were shot and many were killed. Civil discourse, that was mostly about mental illness and guns. Civil discourse, we're here to promote civil discourse in divergent ideas, and it's my belief that civility is what enables us to get as deep as we possibly can get into any particular subject. And with us on this program, I'm happy that they are my guests today, is Robert Mallory Foster Jr. Robbie Foster. He is a UNF undergrad, He graduated 2008. He's a UNF graduate, graduated 2009. You're a grad student. I don't know if you finished. We'll talk about that. Went to Bowles, and he described himself as very conservative. He is the executive director of the Young Republicans in Florida. And sitting next to Robbie is Ryan Andrew Clark. Also went to UNF as an economic major. And you are the president of the Jacksonville Young Democrats. So we have a young Democrat, a young Republican, and I did win my bet. I did say one of you would wear a bow tie. I was correct. All right. Now, I want to start with Robbie, if you don't mind. Why are you a Republican?
I grew up in a household where, with two lawyers, our dinner table conversation was always current events, was always law and politics. And so from a very early age, I had an interest in the subject. And I have a extended family that has also been very involved in politics and the Republican Party. And when I got old enough to develop my own interest in watching the news instead of cartoons and started paying attention, I just naturally gravitated towards the principles of individual responsibility, freedom, liberty, and the free market capitalist system. This was, I mean, during my formative years, was with a Democrat president. I'm too young to remember Ronald Reagan, and it was President Clinton who I grew up watching, and I grew up getting angry and yelling at the TV. And finally, in 1998, when I was in middle school, my dad started driving me to campaign headquarters for Jeb Bush and Steve Wise, a state senator, and I started volunteering. And from there, it just continued through sort of community interest to president of college Republicans, to involvement in the local young Jacksonville Young Republicans, and then on the state level. And now I do political consulting for a living. And I absolutely love it. I am young and naive enough to still believe that Jacksonville, Florida, and the United States of America is the best city, state, and country on the face of the earth, and that our best days are ahead of us. And I'm simply out there trying to make sure that the right people get elected to continue that greatness.
Okay, I applaud anybody who's out in the public arena trying to affect positive public change, almost no matter which viewpoint it comes from, as long as you're open to civil discourse. I appreciate that. Let me ask the same question. Not why are you a Republican, but why are you a Democrat?
Well, first of all, Ken, thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for being here.
I really appreciate being here, and it's great to be on the program. It's funny because the end of Robbie's answer, I think I would almost say the exact same thing. I also happen to believe that I am blessed to live in the greatest city, in the greatest state, in the greatest country in the world, and I also make it I plan to make it my life's work to make sure that the right people are elected. Now, Robbie and I, of course, have a very very distinct disagreement on who the right people are, but that's the great part about this process. Listen, Ken, I came to politics late in life compared to Robbie. But I think our upbringings were similar. I just didn't gravitate to it as soon. I grew up in a household. My dad was in the United States Navy. My mother was a speech pathologist, and two parents, upper middle class upbringing, both with postgraduate degrees. So the dinner table discussion was always about whatever the Republicans were investigating Bill Clinton for, and how evil those Republicans were, and that sort of thing. And I remember yelling at the TV as well when I was in elementary school. I remember yelling at Ken Starr, and at that time I really didn't know who he was, except that he didn't like Bill Clinton, and I liked Bill Clinton. And but it was that early, immature, very young worldview, and partly growing up in a family that, I will be straight with you, I wasn't the son of a bunch of very liberal parents and a very liberal family, but I came from a family that always taught me, whenever I would laugh at something or I would dismiss something, that always taught me to always value whatever anyone said, even if you disagree with it, even if you know that person may not necessarily be the brightest person in the world. They said always value the opinions of others, always be an inclusive person, you'll go farther in life. And it's that early upbringing that I had that I've taken into my life. And I got involved in politics like many other people in the Democratic Party. I first got involved in 2008. I was a reporter at the time. I was working for the UNF student newspaper. I was bored at a baseball game, and I said, I've got some skills writing, I've got some skills that I've developed, but I want to do something with my life, and I want to make a positive impact in the lives of others, and I want to make my life more than just about Ryan Andrew Clark. And so I showed up to a JYD meeting, a Jacksonville Young Democrats meeting, and the next day I was on a bus to see Senator Obama, then Senator Obama, speak down in Orlando, Florida. And I've dedicated myself to doing the work, to doing the volunteerism, to doing the activism, to affect a positive change. And I hope to be able to continue to do that both as a volunteer and as a professional for the remainder of my life.
Okay.
By the way, it was high crimes and misdemeanors, what we were investigating.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, all right. Well,
Okay, well, there you go.
well, you know, he was supporting Bill McCollum, so he has to know. 'Cause I remember,
Well, you both talk about values. So, and you both selected a party, and there's lots of parties out there. You both could have gone to a Tea Party party. You could have gone a Libertarian. You could have gone Reform. You could have gone Green. You claimed you went to Republicans because this is where your family was. You came out of that. What in the Republican Party, what tenets of the Republican Party, their value system, reflects your own personal value system?
It would be those things I mentioned earlier. I mean, it's freedom, liberty, individual
Well,
responsibility.
that sounds like they're American values. I mean, something more specific
Well,
than freedom and
they
liberty.
are American values.
Why is the Republican Party different than freedom? And I mean, we get a little more specific than that.
I mean, our ideas are the ideas that this country was founded on. This country was founded on people leaving another country and starting a new life on their own and valuing individual, personal, God-given rights. And it was very much a group of people that wanted oppressive monarchs to stay out of their business. And while we no longer are the subjects of the British king, we unfortunately have many people in Washington on the left side of the aisle who act like monarchs and who want to dictate to people. And what I gravitated towards in the Republican Party was that individualism, that individual liberty, that...
For example, same-sex marriage, for or against it?
I just don't think there is such a thing. Marriage is quite obviously, by definition, a union between a man and a woman for the purpose of procreation.
If two men want to engage in a contract, or two women want to engage in a contract, is that their freedom to do so, or they should not have that freedom?
I mean,
to do
anyone
so?
can give power of attorney to anyone they want, and anyone can give right of inheritance to anyone they want. What I believe the left's agenda is on gay marriage is an assault on traditional American values. They really, two men or two women getting married is sort of incidental to what their real goal is, which is an undermining of the traditional family. I mean, they've done it in the African American community through welfare programs where they've utterly destroyed the black family. And
when you say they, define yourself.
the left.
Okay.
I mean, the left. LBJ's Great Society is a complete and utter abysmal failure, yet especially the old guard in the left, and now there's a new guard in the left, want to continue it. And they want to continue because the left, to me, seems utterly obsessed with the touchy-feely good intentions of their actions rather than the actual concrete result, which has been an abysmal failure.
Back to you, Ryan. In terms of, well, I want to follow up on give you an opportunity to follow up. But I also want to ask you, what in the Democrat Party most reflects your personal values? Why did you said why you're a Democrat, but there are tenets that Democrats offer that are different than what the Republicans offer. You know, and maybe we can get into Robbie, why aren't you a libertarian, that kind of thing later. But and then so go ahead, Ryan.
Well, first of all,
I
I am not trying to destroy traditional American values. That's not why I got involved in politics. That's not why I got involved in public service. I got involved because not everyone had the opportunity to grow up the way I grew up in the family I grew up in, and had the opportunity that I had. As much as we would love to believe that this is a country, and I know we teach this in school, and I know we talk about it. We talk about this is a country where everyone can make it. We have to be realistic and understand that that's simply not the case. And what we have to do are find solutions to problems that are real, that affect real people in the lives that they are living all over this country. And it's not about advancing any one particular agenda, though. Well, I know. Let me amend that. No, it is about advancing one particular agenda, because it is an agenda, because it is a summary of principles and ideas and programs to put forward that can form the so-called social safety net that we talk about. Because not everyone in this country can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. Not everyone is born into a family where they even have the boots to put on. So it's those principles and those ideas and that bedrock foundation belief that I've been blessed in my life to have the opportunities I've had, and if I can take my talents and convert those talents into what I've been able to do so far, other people should have the opportunity. This country is not and should not ever be one where we take people and we drag them around and we tell them this is what you're going to do. That's the height of the Stalinist regime, and that is something that is absolutely not something we should be doing. But we do need to be able to at least provide the opportunities. Sending kids to failing schools doesn't provide them that opportunity. Those failing schools continuing to fail year in and year out, and saying the answer right now is we're going to pay teachers less while we cut the corporate tax is not going to get it done.
Back to same-sex marriage, do you think the rights, benefits, and privileges conferred upon the United States government to a married couple should be extended to same-sex couples?
Absolutely. And it's a one-word answer for me, but it isn't that simple, because and I'll be brief as I can, but you're talking about marriage as a religious institution versus marriage as what's defined in our tax code, because a lot of people are seeking...
A lot of people don't get that. They see what happens in their church or their synagogue, and they see that as the marriage, but they don't see the legality of it in terms of who gives you the license.
Precisely. And what
that license represents.
And that's the issue. Government should not be forcing churches.
Should a government license heterosexual marriages, Robbie?
I don't know what you mean. We already issue marriage licenses.
Should they continue to do that, or is that an intrusion on heterosexual freedoms?
I don't see how that is. I don't see how government issuing marriage licenses intrudes on heterosexual marriage.
Does it intrude on homosexual marriage?
Again, my position is no such thing. Marriage, by definition, is between a man and a woman.
Okay.
You can. And if the principle every time this debate comes up, the principle is if two people love each other, why shouldn't they be able to get married? Well, if the argument is the simple presence of love allows a marriage, then where do we stop? Where do we draw the line? Why not? Why then outlaw polygamy? Why then have minimum age requirements? The fact is, marriage is between a man and a woman, and unfortunately for the left, because they hate this, it is a religious institution with religious history. But it doesn't change the fact that it is a thousands upon thousands of year old institution that the left would like to change suddenly now. And why is the answer I ask, and that's where I come back to as part of a larger agenda.
But you're asking us to review the history of marriage, and if we do that, we'll see that marriage has taken on all sorts of shapes and forms depending on which culture we come from, including polygamy. But that wasn't really my question, whether or not it is religious. We recognize that it is a religious celebration and as such, and nothing that I've heard from the left in all of my discourse with all of the people that I've talked with about this suggests that anybody is going to encroach on any religious ceremony or ask any religious organization to perform a ceremony that they choose not to. The question becomes, whose rights, benefits, and privileges are you willing to deny?
If we say marriage is a right in this country, then who is a church to disallow it? That will be the next step. And if you have yet to talk to anyone who isn't in favor of that, then there are people out there who are going to do that. Is the next step. They're going to impose this on churches. We've seen the utter disrespect and contempt for Christian churches, and specifically the Catholic Church in San Francisco.
This is a theory that you have, and I don't know if there's any evidence that really supports that. I have heard this before, but I think it might be a straw man argument. I don't know that it is or it isn't. We don't know exactly what the next step is relative to that. Although if we are
the left is always a mouse in the analogy, give a mouse a cookie.
If we are to look at the Constitution, there are some constitutional protections in terms of religious freedom in this country in the form of the First Amendment. Both the Free Exercise Clause and the Establishment Clause suggest that the government should probably remain neutral on matters of religion. Whether or not we're successful at that is another discussion. Ryan, in terms of the values of the Democrat Party, can you list some tenets right now in terms of like an issue that you, same-sex marriage, we had a little go-around regarding that. What are other issues that you think the Democrat Party is in favor of that you are also aligned with as an individual?
Well, I look back at history, and I look at where our country was 100 years ago. We were trust busting. And 100 years later, now we're union busting. And we look at the change that's happened in this country, and I look at the Democratic Party as the party of my family, the party of my upbringing, my social status. I went to public school all my life, and I loved every minute of it, and I am proud to say that. But I understand, and I know for a fact that not everyone had that opportunity, and there are a lot of working families out there that just don't. They're working 2 jobs right now just so they can keep a roof over their head. They're working hard so that make sure that their kids have enough money to go to college. And I think that the Democratic Party, when I look back at history and I look at what we've done and where we've been and the things we've accomplished with our, not just as a party, but what members of our party have gone on and done, working families, collective bargaining, organizing, protecting the rights of our working families, working men and women. That's
where you're most aligned.
That's a tenet that
we're going to come back and we're going to talk more. We're going to take a short break. We're going to talk. There's a lot of subjects. There's no shortage of topics. We can talk for hours here. You're watching a program called Civil Discourse. I do appreciate the civil discourse we're having. My name is Ken Hurley. This program is sponsored by Civication Incorporated. Check us out on the web, civication.org. Take a look at these messages. We will be right back. Hello and welcome back to Civil Discourse. My name is still Ken Hurley, and you're watching a program sponsored by Civication Incorporated. And with me in the studio is Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark is the president of the Jacksonville Young Democrats. And sitting next to Ryan is Robbie Foster, who is the executive director of the Young Republicans of Florida, or the Florida Young Republicans. I guess that's the proper way to say it. I appreciate you both being here. We opened the program a little bit why you're a Democrat, why you're a Republican. Robbie, let me ask you, what's the difference between a libertarian and a Republican from your view? Why aren't you a libertarian?
Well, I am a libertarian. I believe in all the things libertarians believe in.
That's interesting. Then why are you registered a Republican? You're going to make some libertarians scratching their head. Why can't we get this guy on our team?
Because the Libertarian Party has a totally backwards view of foreign policy and has a liberal view of social policy. I am not in favor of ending the drug war. I am not in. I support
the war. Big issue for
I
them.
support the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm a social conservative. And so I would the big traditional break between the libertarians and the Republicans has been the social issues, and then recently it's been foreign policy, as the Ron Paul faction has become a more and more vocal yet never increasing in size.
Well,
faction.
the faction is catching a little traction now, I think, don't you?
Maybe with the press, but not with the voters. Right. I mean, the voters recognize the serious threat posed by Islamic fascism, and I don't believe for a minute we can revert to some sort of pre-World War I even isolation policy. But again, I mean, I'm not in favor of decriminalization of drugs. I mean, I'm against, as we spoke earlier, gay marriage. I'm against abortion, and all those sorts of social issues are just as important to me as any of the economic or philosophical issues, and they're just not to the libertarians.
You're an economic major. You studied that. You work in economics. We have, what's our deficit? I don't know. What's our debt? Trillions? I don't know.
We're in the teens now. We're in the low teens.
Low teens. If you had to sum this up, and what should we be doing? A lot of people say the stimulus didn't work, and the stimulus didn't work, and the private sector hasn't been able to create jobs. I assume you're a big private sector individual. We have people such as...
I'm in favor of things that actually work.
Well, people, John Bonner's out there saying, well, the stimulus didn't help the private sector. Well, why should the private sector even want the stimulus? But then people go back and say, well, it didn't work because the banks are hoarding the money. They're hoarding the money because they're waiting for interest rates to go up. As an economic major, help us get out of this in like a minute and a half.
You're not going to let me do a 4-hour lecture?
No, thank you. No.
Ken, the simple fact is where we are right now is we are coming out of the deepest hole we've been in since the 1930s. And I don't think people in this country, including the leadership at the top, and I will say this as a Democrat, when he got into office, I think President Obama made some promises about the unemployment rate that were based on bad data and incomplete data. And I don't think anyone quite knew the scope of what was happening until we really got into it in 2009. That said, if you look at what are known as the leading indicators, and the big one is the Standard & Poor's 500 and the rest of the stock market equity indices, you will see a lot of cash, you'll see a lot of volume. If you've got a 401k now, you're better off than you were 2 years ago. The reason for that is because not only did the federal government inject $850 billion, which ended up the sum total effect of the economy with when you do what we call the money multiplier was around about $1.5 trillion. Not only does that happen, but the Federal Reserve has also injected billions of dollars into the economy. At present, there is $110 billion of new money flowing into the economy every month from the Federal Reserve. And that money is going straight from the banks into the corporations that trade on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and the Standard & Poor's 500. So those indicators are looking fantastic. On the flip side of that, someone watching this show right now is going to be saying, well, I don't have, Ryan, that's fantastic, but I don't have a job. They got all that money. Why aren't they spending it? Why aren't they investing it? Why aren't they creating jobs? And the answer to that is it's quite simple. Right now, in order for banks to make money, they have to lend money. They're not having to lend money right now because they're getting nice injections from the Federal Reserve. When that stops, when that ends, and the banks are forced to lend, credit will ease up to small business owners, and the innovation that has to take place for the jobs to be created, for the jobs to come back, that will begin to happen.
Why are we spending more than we tax?
Well, let's go back to.
I want to ask you the same question.
Let's start, because let's talk about this fantastic foreign policy.
We got 2 minutes.
Let's talk about this.
He's going to take all of it.
Let's talk about this great foreign policy that Robbie talked about, and let's go back and look at the fact that we cut taxes. For the first time ever, we went to war and didn't pay for it. We didn't make the choice, and that's one of the reasons that the British stopped fighting wars way back when. Is they're too expensive. We went to war and didn't pay for it. Then we had Katrina, which we also had to pay for. Then we had 2008. And we had the double whammy of having to stabilize the financial institutions. There's $750 billion. Otherwise, that camera doesn't work, and we're not in the studio today. And we had to do the stimulus just to make sure people could go pick up groceries for a couple weeks. So let's look at the sum total of the fiscal mismanagement that happened for the last decade under George W. Bush. If you're going to go to war, if we have vital interests that need to be defended, if it's worth going to war for, it's worth paying for.
Well, we pay for it with the money that we print, right? Why do we spend more than we tax?
Well, first of all, the war was not an option. We were attacked, and we had to respond and defend ourselves. Second of all, we are not in the mess we're in today because of Iraq. We're not in the mess we're in today because of Afghanistan. We're in the mess we're in today because of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the housing market, Senator Chris Dodd, and Congressman Barney Frank. We're in the mess we're in today for the same reason we're ever in a mess, is because the Democrats are addicted to spending. Addicted to spending. And there is simply no way you can compare our national defense and dealing with the threat of Islamofascism to giving people homes that can't afford them, to a totally failed stimulus which turned into essentially a slush fund in 2010 to try and get Democrats reelected.
What do you think will do us in before the other? The terrorist threat that we perceive and that we are geared up to defend, or our fiscal mismanagement?
I don't think either things are going to kill us. America is well aware of the threat, and that is why we have prevailed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And America, the public now knows that this is an enemy who is going to bring the fight to us every chance they get until they're defeated, and we're committed to that. And I think America these last 2 years has finally woken up to just the failure of the Democrat policies, and we're going to fix that. And it's going to start January 20th, 2013.
What do you both do? This question is to both of you, and we are running out of time. What do you do to get new Democrats registered? What do you do to get new Republicans registered? Ryan, and you really only have 1 minute.
I'll be brief then. We are right now, we are engaging in a lot of what I think would be considered apolitical activity. The Jacksonville Democrats are going to focus this year on doing a lot of service projects, a lot of things that we do. We kind of stopped doing during the election because we had to go get some Democrats elected, or not elected, but we had to try. But we're going to focus in on the community, the city of Jacksonville. We're going to focus in on doing service projects in areas that need it, and helping out the community that has given us so much.
Okay.
That's going to be our
What
focus.
do you do to get new young Republicans?
They just flock. I mean, and it's really...
Is it as simple as you showing up on camera?
It is as simple as the sheer presence of us. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm actually serious. We have the local Jacksonville Young Republicans are about a year old and have gone from 0 people to 250 dues-paying members.
I hope you'll both come back. We're out of time. I'm sorry to be so abrupt, but we are. I just got the signal. You've been watching a program called Civil Discourse. I really enjoyed this show. Watch it on our website, civication.org. Take care. We'll see you next time. My name's Ken Hurley.
You're watching Local Access, Channel 29, exclusive programming for Comcast subscribers.
Welcome to No Limits. My name is Beth Meyer, and I'm the Development Director for the ILRC of Northeast Florida. And today we're really excited because we have a board member with us, Roosevelt and Carol Morrell, and we thank you so much for coming today and participating with the show. We have a lot of great things to talk about, but we appreciate you both coming and bringing a perspective that we really haven't showcased yet on the TV show. So we really appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, before we get into, I know a lot of the great things that we're going to discuss, Roosevelt, can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the ILRC and what you felt like you could kind of bring to the ILRC, the Board of Directors, because you've served for how many years now?
6.
6 years, okay. So tell me a little bit about how you heard about us and what made you make that commitment.
Well, I graduated with my master's degree in rehab counseling in 2000. And one of the ladies on the board asked me to come and be a part of the board. And I was reluctant at the time, and I said, well, you know, I've never been on a board like this before. So she said, you will fit right in. Right. Because of, you know, your education and your background, and, you know, you're visually impaired. So I came to a meeting in 2004.